Day is May the 4th. And so, I just thought, since it's May the 4th, y'all might appreciate a little bit of a reference to Star Wars, one of the greatest epics ever probably written in modern times. Anakin Skywalker loved, treasured, and cherished Padme Amidala. And of course, their relationship blossoms over the course of 3 movies, but it ends tragically. It's like Romeo and Juliet. But he had a love and passion for Padme, to the point that by treasuring her, he wanted nothing to happen to her. In fact, he feared losing her in death. And so that weighed and weighed and weighed and weighed upon him. And actually, his very fear allowed his passion and his love to become misplaced, and it was manipulated by one of the evil villains. And as a result, he literally chooses to go to the dark side. And of course, in the climax of the movie, Star Wars, Revenge of the Sith, you have Anakin Skywalker fighting his old friend and teacher, Obi-Wan Kenobi. Because at this point, he sees nothing wrong with using whatever's necessary to win the day, and using whatever's necessary to either try to bring back his lost love or to avenge her death. He blames everybody but himself. He had his heart, you might say, was in the right place, but certainly in the wrong way. Tonight, I want to talk to you about your heart. 2 key words appear in our text in Matthew chapter 6, verse 21. And those 2 words is treasure. And we talked about treasure last Wednesday night, where your treasure is. And the other side of that, your heart will be there also. The Bible says, "Do not lay up for yourselves treasures on earth, where moth and rust destroy, and where thieves break in and steal. But lay up for yourselves treasures in heaven, where neither moth nor rust destroys, and where thieves do not break in and steal. For where your treasure is, there your heart will be also." And as we look at tonight, we look at the word heart, and that's very important. Our heart is a treasury. Our heart often tells something about our desires and about our character. What and who you and I are passionate about. Even in the extreme, that is a hard issue. So tonight, as we look at verse 21, "For where your treasure is, there will your heart be also." That word in the language of the New Testament, which is Greek, is the word cardia. We get the word cardiac or cardio from that in medical terminology, loosely. And the scholars tell us that the heart is the effective center of being, the capacity for moral preference. I like the way one person said, it's the desires that makes you tick. I want to keep referring to that as we go on through this passage. It is the desire that makes you tick. And it's used as a metaphor. When you see the word heart, it's not talking about the pump, which is the flesh and blood that keeps you alive. Although, yes, cardia could refer to that. But it refers to that part of you which is your intellect, your reason, your willpower, and your emotion. That which makes you, making the decisions that you make. The desires that make you tick. You may be a big fan of college football, SEC, have your favorite sports teams, and you root for them, you follow them, you watch their games, you may go to their games, you may wear their colors. That's great, that's awesome, nothing wrong with that. I remember as a teenager, actually as a child and a teenager in Canton, there was a clothing store. They used the word back then, haberdashery. That's the funniest name I have ever heard. A haberdashery. Have y'all ever heard of haberdashery before? No, I didn't think so. That goes back a while. But it was a men and women's clothing store, and it was owned and operated by the Ayuk family. And of course, in fact, their son owns a sporting goods store in Ridgeland, Mississippi, even now. But back in the day, That's where I went to get my Levi's. That's where I went to get my Ocean Pacific shirts. That's where I went to get my all my other stuff. We didn't always just run off to the mall. We only had one big mall, and it was the Metro Center Mall. And to go there, that was usually a major excursion or expedition. So we'd go there. But Joe Ayub Sr., he had gone to Mississippi State. He loved Mississippi State. He lived and breathed Mississippi State. Obviously, his family went to Mississippi State. He donated tons of money to Mississippi State. You see a pattern developing here. That was a treasure for him. That was a passion and nothing wrong with it. And he brooked no discussion over any other team. There was only one team, and it was Mississippi State. That was it. I mean, he was Mr. Mississippi State. And woe be unto you if you do like I did one day. I showed up, I was a teenager, I was at Canton Academy, and I didn't have my Canton Academy shirt on. I walked in there wearing an Ole Miss shirt. Yes, I had an Ole Miss shirt, so I just thought I would share that. I wear Mississippi College a lot, but I had my Ole Miss shirt on. I'm like, man, I thought I had robbed a bank. I thought that I was like maybe on the outside looking in, and he was very serious about his passion. Well, that's that sense of passion. The word cardia talks about our heart, the things that make us tick. They're good and they're bad. His store, by the way, was a shrine to Mississippi State as well, which is absolutely amazing. The heart relates to the inner person, mentally, morally, emotionally. As I said, your will, your spirit. And sometimes you will hear people say, especially young people right now, as some of you are prepared to graduate, others who will be graduating next year, and for children, the same thing for you, although you won't be graduating from high school for a while yet. But you'll hear people say, hey, just follow your heart, trust your heart. Well, I understand the sentiment behind that, but here's the problem. The heart is deceitful above all things and desperately wicked. Who can know it? Jeremiah 17, verse 9. And in verse 10, the Lord responds to that question. I, the Lord, search the heart. I try the reins, even to give every man according to his ways and according to the fruit of his doings. You always have to be very careful about trusting your heart and following your heart, because we are all sinners, saved only by the grace of God. The desires that make us tick can lead us to treasure things that are not of God or do not honor God, and left unchecked, guess what? Those things that we're passionate about, those things that make us tick, can lead us into idolatry. Even the best of things. I'm not talking about the heinous things. I'm not talking about, going out and finding, a bunch of Satan worshipers somewhere. I'm not talking about that at all. Okay? Let's talk about maybe good things, but we get so passionate about them that they command our attention and our affection and our allegiance. And if we're not careful, we get swept away in that. The Bible tells us, do not love the world or the things in the world. If anyone loves the world, the love of the Father is not in him. For all that is in the world, the lust of the flesh, the lust of the eyes, the pride of life, is not of the Father, but is of the world. And the world is passing away, and the lust of it. But he who does the will of God abides forever. 1 John 2:15 and 17. That word lust, obviously we can understand one element of that, but I would like for you to back up and take a bigger picture and look at that. It means strong desire. And sometimes it may be a legitimate desire, but you go about fulfilling it the wrong way. Your passion takes a hold of you and carries you away. So that's why we are not to love the things of the world. And there are a lot of things. Louis Armstrong sang a song, and I think to myself, what a wonderful world. I mean, don't ask me to do that again. It will kill me. But you get the idea. Google him sometime if you want to hear that whole song. Beautiful, beautiful song. But the problem is, when our focus is the world or worldly things, and our treasury is full of worldly things, is the love of the Lord in us. That sometimes, at the very least, can get shoved to the side. At the very worst, it may not be there at all. So do not love the things of the world, but love the things of the Lord. For out of the heart comes evil thoughts, murders, adulteries, fornications, thefts, false witness, blasphemies. Matthew 15, verse 19. In other words, you cannot trust your heart, not completely. Because unless your heart has been born again, it's full of sin. And sin is always going to take you away from the Lord. It's not going to bring you to the Lord. I think that's why King David prayed, and I suspect King David prayed many times, Lord, create within me a clean heart and renew a right spirit within me. So let's apply that tonight. How, as we think about our heart, our desire, our passion, yeah, they can be extreme sometimes. They can be warped. In fact, in an unhealthy way, those passions and desires can be the reason that people commit theft and murder. On the other hand, sometimes it may not be that extreme, but we might get in that mindset that our desire, our passion, our heart can be such, and it can become hard. It can become cold. It can become greedy. And you get that mindset that says, like when I play Monopoly, it's not enough that I win. Everybody else must lose, and lose poorly. That may be an unhealthy approach to life, don't you think? So as we apply that, have you given your heart to Jesus so that He can change it? He can give you a new heart, and therefore new desires to seek and to store up new types of treasures. The treasures that are of Him, that honor Him, and that will not pass away, that you can store up in heaven. Enjoy now, but store up in heaven as well. Follow Jesus, young people, adults, not your heart, because your heart can deceive you. If Jesus is your treasure above all treasures, then your heart will be with Him, and your heart is safe with Him. When He is your passion, and when He is that desire and goal of your life, then you will be going in that right direction rather than being scattered. He can help you to have a holy passion, a righteous perspective on all other pursuits and desires. So, as you think about it tonight, what are the desires that make you tick? Your ongoing focus, its origin, what you're focusing on. When Jesus is your treasure, then that's a healthy investment. And your heart can follow after that. There was a woman who said, I just really can't get interested in missions. And the reply came to her, no, you can hardly expect to. It's just like getting interest at the bank. You have to put in a little, and the more you put in, the more interest you get. Well, when it comes to the Lord as our treasure and our heart being safe with Him in that sense of that treasury, investing time with Him in prayer, in Bible study, in serving Him, in loving Him, all those things, obeying Him, your treasury will be full in time. You can watch it grow. You're laying up treasure in heaven. But where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. So guard your heart more than anything else, because the source of your life flows from it. Proverbs 4:23. So tonight, as we have our invitation, as our worship leaders come, as always, I give you an opportunity to respond. That's for children, that's for youth, it's for young adults, it's for adults as well. God's invitation is open to everybody. Come, give your heart to Jesus. Or come and ask Jesus to renew your heart, maybe to fill your heart afresh, or to cleanse your heart. Follow Jesus, who can guide your heart, especially if you're looking for a church home. If you don't have a church home, I invite you to explore the Lord guiding and leading you here as we stand and sing our hymn of invitation. I have decided to follow Jesus. Will you give Him your heart tonight? You come.